All right, so I am creating a video for those that did it themselves, and hopefully this will help them a little bit. Okay, so here we go. So the beginning part is just the quick reference, and then this is telling us basically they over-explain, and they over-explain everything in hopes that you'll understand what the question is. And if you had a job that was doing this, they would do the same thing. They would explain one way if you didn't understand. They would make sure you know what the output's going to be, what you want them to actually input. So it's just pretty basic over explaining, but it needs to be done. Okay, so what we have here is we have a string. So we know that this is not an array, this is a string, just like that. And I don't know what a jute bag is, but that's interesting. What is that? Anyway, so and they're just kind of giving the basic lowdown of the question, not the entire problem yet, but just a basic lowdown. So they're showing you that how you would make how overeager is this with 60 zippers were quickly picked from the woven jute bag. Okay, so it's just giving you a basic breakdown. Okay, and then the next time, then we start to get more specific. So here they're telling you what string part is, so that you have to create nothing in string part. You just have to use string part. So you have to know string part is the class. So this is the constructor. These are the same names. Okay, so you know this is the constructor, right? Because the names are the same. So the fact that these two are parameters, chances are there's probably a field that relates to those two things. Not always, but I mean, it's a general breakdown. They say you don't see everything. You don't see the variables, the constructors, or the methods. Not everything. You're just seeing the things that you need to use. And that's the key here. So if they're showing it to you, it's generally not like trying to throw you. They're saying, we need you to use these things, okay? So get start is telling you where the string starts in that master string, what it will be later. And get length is the length of it. Okay, so it's showing you this in code form. So you don't need to know the implementation. It's unnecessary. All you have to know is what it does. It sends back the length. That's it. So it's important to know that. Okay, so then they go ahead and say these things basically in words. So some people don't like the code piece, they like the word piece. So string coder provides methods to encode and decode. So they're basically saying that we're going to be using a new class that's going to be using this class. Okay, and then they say stuff like the find part is provided to use the helper method, and this is key. They use the word helper method. You're probably going to have to make sure that you use that. Okay, so just so you're aware. Okay, so then we're here. This is the class that you're actually writing. So sometimes you can skip around, you read these problems, and you're like, okay, what do I have to do? And so maybe you'll skip right to here. That can be slightly overwhelming sometimes, so just doing a brief read through of the question is a good idea to start, and then looking at the specifics will help you. Okay, so this particular class, you'll see that you have a field, and what they do here is they show you the code for the constructor, which is interesting. The basic idea is they're trying to trick you. Okay, they want to see later on if you're going to use master string or master. So remember, you always want to use the name of the field, not the parameter that was here, because that's just a local variable and you're never going to use it again. So they want to make sure that you use master string if you have to refer to master string, which of course you will. Okay, so that's the constructor. Whoop-de-doo. All right, so what we need to do first is the decoder, which is, I guess, the easier one. I don't know. They're both pretty difficult in general. These two problems are pretty nice problems. So every part of this is actually really good. So what they say and what you have to do is they say, and the header tells you everything, but the comment above it tells you even more important stuff. Okay, so they tell you it in words. This tells you in code, but you may not realize that what string is actually returning. So it says this string is returning the string obtained by concatenating the parts of the master string. So that's when we take all the little pieces and we put them all together. So we're going to be adding up strings. But you have to remember, you have to start from the beginning to the end. And this is in order. Okay, so these parts, they sold us back there. I'm not really reading right now, but this is parts. And parts has all the different pieces, has all the different string parts that tell you the starting space and the length of the string that you need. And then you're going to add those pieces on, and they happen in order. So from beginning to end, that's going to happen. So that's what we're going to write first. So I'm going to skip all these because that's what I need. Okay. Write the string coder. This method retrieves substrings that are master string represented by each of the string parts. Okay, so it's key that you know string part. And you remember that what we did back there, where it had get length and get, it had the constructor, and then it had get length, and it had get start. Okay, so that's what we're going to need when we're doing these to decode it. So let's write that first. So I actually wrote it out already, so I just want to, because when I was writing it out, I felt like it was very confusing. So the first thing you have to realize, you have string here. So you're going to have to make sure a string gets returned. So I like to, you don't always have to. Sometimes the program lends it where you don't have to create a variable, but it also helps knowing that you're going to write this. So sometimes when I first begin, I'll write this and then I'll return it at the end. And I have like basically at least 2 points out of the whatever this one's out of. I think it's like 4.5. Okay, now most of you did it this way. I'm going to show you when we're done here how to do this one with the enhanced for loop, because you can do this one with the enhanced for loop. But to begin with, I'm just going to do it this way. So the key here is, and a lot of you are, what you're having problems with is understanding how to get inside this array list. So this array list parts is, let's just picture it down here. You've got this array list, and inside it you have objects. Now I understand objects are pointers, and so technically this is just pointing things out here, but that's, for our purposes, it's not really necessary to think that. So what I want to think of is this is a string part, which it has a start value and a length of string. So it's the decoder piece. Each one of these has a start and a length. So however many it is, start and a length. Okay, so the deal is, this here is an object. So if I do parts.getI, and this part was great, okay, most of us know how to do that for loop, remembering that it's size for array lists and stuff. Okay, but this gets you here, but this is still locked. Okay, it's like a safe inside of this. So I did parts.getI and I got to this box, but that box isn't enough. That box is an object with 2 parts in it, start and length, and I cannot access them. They are private. So in order to get at them, I need to use their method. So get start will get me the start value. So I get in to the box, and then I have to get in to start and length. The only way to do that is to use those methods because they're private. They don't even tell us what the names are, which is probably for the best. Okay, so in order to get the start value, I don't want that color. So to get the start value, we have to not only get the value of the spot in the array, so this is the 0 spot of the array, so it's getting that to start with. Then I need to, once I'm there, I need to get the start value. I'm putting it in start, otherwise it's like 12 pages long. It goes too far, so I made 2 variables. So this will get us the start value, so whatever that turns out to be. And then this one here gets us in, so let's just do this one. So that parts.getI will get us in, say this was the 1 spot, And then in order to get to L, I need to use getLength. So whenever you have array lists of objects, you get the object and then you have to use the getter methods to actually get the values out of your that object. Okay, so it's always going to be a bunch of composition of methods. So it's going to be a bunch of dots. Okay, so once I have these two, I have to use my substring. So my result was this. So I did a plus equal, or you could have done result equals result plus, whichever way is better for you. And then the substring is start, the start index, where you want to start. And this one is one higher than the end index. So it's end index plus 1. So it's not how long it is or whatever, it's actually the index that you want, one higher than it. So it's slightly obnoxious. So if the start index was 5, okay, and the length was 3, we want to go to 8. So 5, 8 would get us whatever the word would be. It would get us the 5, 6, and 7 spots. Whatever the letters happen to be in those spots. So it goes 3 spots. Remember, it's always one higher than what it is. So this is the basic method. It wasn't too bad, but I really wanted to go over that, and I'll probably have to do that again. Here is what it looks like if we did it with a enhanced for loop. All basically it is, instead of using parts.getI, I just use X. Since I don't have to change anything in the parts, and I don't have to, all I need is to get them, it just kind of takes down the spots. So this is the get start and the length, and then I returned it. It doesn't matter. Either one is beautiful. So part B says write the string coder method, encode strings. So it's, you actually have to encode them. So this is hard, and when I first read this, I actually did this whole problem without using the helper method find part, which is really, really hard. And I should have realized when I was doing that that it was too much. Okay, these are never that hard of a problem. They're difficult maybe with your brain, but they're never really a lot of code, unless they're basic, writing the class code. So the thing that you want to remember is I just wrote this one. You want to look, maybe you have to use this one. This particular one you don't. This one here is the key. Knowing what find part does makes this one so easy. Well, not so easy, but so much easier. Okay, encode using the master string. Okay, all of the characters in that appear in the master string. So preconditions are basically things you don't have to put if statements in your methods. So they're good to look at so that you don't inundate yourself with error checking. But then right here it says what it returns. So you see it returns something. We are not writing this, okay? It doesn't matter how it was done. We just can use it, and that's the key. Part in the master string that matches the beginning of str, matches the beginning of str. So that's the key here. It checks, and it tells you where the beginning of that word is. Okay, so whatever word I have, so I forget what the word is, but if it found ENC, it will always start with the E. So even if DED is actually in it, it's going to just take whatever starting with E, whatever is the best, the most letters basically it can find. That's how I interpreted it. It doesn't really matter how you interpreted it, but what matters is that it starts at the beginning of str, of this parameter here, and it returns a string part. So that means it's going to return the box, with a start spot and a length spot. So if you're returning a start spot and a length spot, then you have everything that you need to encode it. It's actually, that's what you want. So the what you want to return for this problem here that you're writing is an array list of string parts. And since this returns a string part, that's half the work. Like everything's basically done. So all you really have to do is keep cutting down your word because it's always going to return the beginning. So you have to just cut down your word because it's always returning the beginning. So whatever part of the word that it picked, you want to cut that out. So in other words, if you had, I'm just making up words, machine, and it found MA, so it found basically what it would have done is it found the spot, it found something of length 2. If it's found something of length 2, then you know that it got rid of M and A. So the next time you go through it and the next time you call find part, you want to just check sheen. And then whatever it finds, it doesn't really matter what it finds, but what it matters is that you have to cut that out so that it's no longer there, so that because find part always finds the beginning of that string. So you can't leave the M and the A there because it won't find the beginning of it. Like it'll always just find where the M and the A were. All right. So here's the method header again to make sure. And remember, it returns an array list. Since it's going to return an array list, the first thing you really have to do is create an array list. That's a key. And then it's just going to put them all together. Okay, so let's go down here. Again, I did it here. I believe I did it right. I was a little angry with this question, so I may have made a couple mistakes, but you know me. All right, so first thing you got to do is create an array list of type string part. Same thing that you're going to return, and then return it down at the bottom. Really do those right away so you don't forget. Okay, so you create the new array list. Whatever. Okay. So I wanted to create a temporary. I just don't like changing the word. You can use Word. You don't have to create a temporary. I have issues. So I like to create, I don't like to change it. Not that after you run it, it's not going to change it. So it's just one of those things. Anyway. All right. So everything I do, if I have temp, you could just have Word. It works out the same way. It makes no difference. I have issues. That's all. Okay. So the key here is you have to use find part, and find part is of type string part. So I did this in different steps. So basically what happens here is it finds a box, basically start and end. Well, not start, sorry, start and length. So that's what find part is returning. So if it's returning an object, X is going to be needs to be pointing at that object. As well as find point, right? That's what needs to happen. So what we want to do, it finds perfect. We add it to the code. So we take this guy and we have this. We haven't created the array list yet, but we do this and we put that same start and length in the array list. We add it to the first spot. Okay. Once we have that, we know if the first section of that code of that word. So like I just did machine, I don't know what the master word is. Okay, so since I don't know what the master word is, sorry, I was just thinking. I don't know what start will be, but I know that if it found length, let's say it found length is 2 here. I don't know what start is because it's whatever. I want to add that to there. So I cut that out and I add it to the array list, and then I want to cut those out. So substring, if I start at the length, so the length of this particular one is 2. So that's where the C is. So this is where I want this now. I want sheen. So I take that and I do substring of sheen. So I don't need commas because the length of it is enough because it starts at 2 and goes to the end. Right? And then I just want to see, since I cut this out, I just want to see if the length is greater than 0. I just want to see if there's anything left. That's how I did it. There's a million other conditions you could have used. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and then I just repeated that. And it just kept going until the length was over. So then I'd say it found C. So that's of length 1. I'm going to cut that out, but I put C in here, and it has wherever it is in the master words of length 1, and it just keeps going until it finishes. And in the end, you're going to have this array list of different strings and lengths according to the master string, and then you're done. Okay, so that's how that works. I just need to check something. Okay, and then this is the point breakdown. So the point breakdown is basically they give you can check it out for yourself, but the basic idea is if find part is the one that you have to watch, that's worth 1 point, but it's kind of like a domino effect. If you don't have it, then it kind of takes away a whole bunch of points from you. Okay? All right, so notice that returning, building and decoding, and returning and constructing, that's a whole point out of 9, you know. So just returning, creating and returning the build string counts as quite a bit. So it's like, watch that out, okay? All right, have a good one.